This will hopefully be a short video. Here's the deal. I recently watched Beowulf 2007 for the first time. Big shock. It's not good. It's not very good. I think that's something that most critics at the time agreed on, and I think audiences as well have sort of joined the consensus that this was just not a very good movie. I was relatively young, or much younger, at the time of release, and I do remember this movie for being kind of notorious, especially as like a young boy in particular. It was notorious because there's basically full frontal female nudity in the form of Angelina Jolie's Grendel's mother character. Apparently the character is just called Grendel's mother. Anyway, I've decided not to do any kind of real review of the movie. I think I'd just be repeating what other people have said for years now. It's uncanny valley CG. Some of the environments are impressive, and on a technical level, even some of the character animation is impressive, but it doesn't work. Certainly in hindsight, it just seems like it was a pretty bad idea, and just some very strange choices were made. But it does seem like everybody was trying. It was directed by Robert Zemeckis, who has a kind of hit and miss track record in terms of his filmography. Co-written by Neil Gaiman, of all people, and I think Roger Avery. But here's why I mention any of this, and specifically why I mention the screenwriters in this case. It's because the movie itself kind of struggles to have themes outside of pre-existing themes that were in the original work. They tried to impress upon this movie adaptation sort of general theme of heroes and like the value of heroes, what it means to be a hero. And I think that's a decent approach. I mean, it makes sense. You're doing a contemporary adaptation of a truly ancient story. It is a hero's story. It is a hero's journey story specifically. It follows the hero's journey structure quite closely. And I guess I'll be touching on some spoilers and stuff, but instead of doing a big review, I just want to talk about this idea of heroes. And Beowulf 2007, the movie really gets on its high horse a couple of times when they want to hammer home that it has this big central theme about heroes. After Beowulf has ascended, so to speak, he lies about killing Grendel's mother. He's a king, but he's not happy with it. He has everything he could ever want, but he's realizing, I don't have the true heart of a hero or something. I lied. This is all just earthly pleasures. It's not really worth anything. My name doesn't mean what everybody thinks it means, which is fine. That's great. That's a great source of character conflict. It's a-okay for adding drama to your screenplay. There's this little back and forth between Beowulf and Beowulf. Sorry, I'm not going to go as hard on the pronunciations as the actors in the movie do. It sounds like Weedlove to me, but I think it's like Beowulf, something like that. Anyway, I'm going to do some voice acting for you because I think it's important to, give this whole exchange in more or less its entirety. And if I tried to just use the clip from the movie, I would probably get a copyright strike or claim or takedown or who knows what. So I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to read this out, and then we're going to have a talk. So we start off with Weedlove. I'll try to distinguish the voices from each other. The Phrygians want to make themselves heroes, my lord. They want the bards to sing of their deeds. It's going to be a short song. How can you blame them? Your legend is known from the blah blah place to the special high mountains of somewhere. You are the monster slayer. We men are the monsters now. The time of heroes is dead. We laugh. The Christ God has killed it, leaving humankind with nothing but weeping martyrs, fear, and shame. Thank you, I did a great job. Okay, so why do I bring up that exchange? It's actually pretty common if you just sort through a screenplay. If you're ever curious about I'm not sure what themes what messaging they're trying to communicate to me, sometimes screenwriters will just flat out state the theme. They'll just put it in a character's dialogue, and the characters just tell the audience what the theme of the movie is. But here, it's very on the nose. Beowulf himself, our good old protagonist here, is saying, Age of Heroes is dead. Jesus specifically killed the Age of Heroes. That's a bad thing, and it has devalued either the nature of the human race or how human beings see themselves or other humans. I don't think it fits necessarily. Like I said, the general theme of heroes works just fine for this story. But as for this argument, I don't really completely understand where it's coming from. But for now, let's just have a very simple thing here. Let's just extract that idea. Let's just take this question of heroes. Do we need heroes? Do we need our stories to focus on heroes? Is that a positive thing across the board? Is it somehow like serving as, a source of empowerment narratives for people, like role models, fictional heroes, whatever? Is that a good thing? And is that what we should base a lot of our storytelling and culture around? Now, personally, for somewhat obvious reasons, I associate the concept of heroes in storytelling, specifically fictional storytelling, that type of storytelling tradition, which is very old and which is still very, very common and used a whole lot today. I associate it heavily with hero worship, which is something that we can see all over the place just in day-to-day life. When you tend to elevate someone, your view of someone, probably someone you don't know, you put them up on a podium. It's very common to do with like political figures that you're into, celebrities. It's very common there. If you're into like film, it's incredibly easy, especially when you're younger, to just hero worship like directors. Like, oh my gosh, so many people feel that way about Stanley Kubrick, of like, oh, he was perfect and he was just the best at this stuff and no one else will ever be like him. His movies are, wow, what a great vision he had, and he created all this great work. In reality, in basically all of these situations, and referring to all these different types of people, it's incorrect at the very least to say that just one person is responsible for all this good stuff that you like so much. And specifically with filmmaking, especially, like we're starting to see that more now, of even directors themselves being like, hey, look, yeah, like, yes, I was in charge of this project, but we have this massive team of people working in every different department, and like, it's not just me. Like, please don't just give me the credit for this kind of stuff. We see that too in the world of video games. Just the idea of the auteur is one that I think is very closely tied to hero worship. I generally see hero worship as a pretty negative thing, as a pretty outdated thing, like outdated to the point of being part of maybe even like the reptilian evolutionary brain. Like, it's something that we don't necessarily need anymore. It happens with business leaders. It's definitely happened with Elon Musk, and we're starting to see sort of the backlash to that now, a reappraisal of what he's actually like. I do want this to lead into some kind of discussion, or at the very least, if you could just kind of consider this question on your own. Do we need to keep having stories about heroes? Is hero worship a, exclusively positive thing? Are there just these incredible positive benefits to hero stories that we can't afford to lose? I don't think so. That's really not my feeling on it at all. And I think that we can't discount the cultural impact, long-term and widespread cultural impact of stories on actual people, especially when we have, we're not just talking about individual stories, but entire storytelling genres, storytelling tropes. These things seep into culture very much over time. So even though nobody's looking at a specific movie, a fictional movie, and saying, oh, I'm going to live my life based on what this movie is communicating to me. No, it happens much more subtly and over very long stretches of time. That's one reason why I think it's very important to talk about popular media, specifically narratives in contemporary media. This whole topic also concerns the concept of master plots. Basically, master plots are storytelling ideas that cultures continue to tell in many different forms through many different iterations. I would say that here in the US, a very common master plot is, if you work hard enough, you can achieve anything. And we see this master plot sort of cocooning itself and reiterating itself as a way of taking it to a place where it's beyond approach. We have all these inspirational sports movies that are sort of based on a true story, but it's probably not, completely accurate. And those always communicate, oh, these people had enough like heart, or they put in enough time and effort, and look, they did the thing, they got what they wanted, they achieved something. Any biopic about like a famous person, or even documentaries about people, or especially celebrities who are still alive, you're never going to get the full story from that kind of stuff, and it's always going to portray that person as someone who's like genuinely skilled, genuinely talented, just had these great ideas.
I see myself as a sensitive, intelligent human being.
And that's why they succeeded. They don't consider other factors that are actually at play in real life, like privilege, position, all these other moving parts that can play a very big role in the way that someone's life turns out, basically. So that's just the point that I wanted to bring up, basically, by talking about Beowulf, because the movie Beowulf 2007 really seems to think that hero narratives are extremely important. I have heard similar arguments from Neil Gaiman, both in some of his other work, as well as like some interviews and stuff that he's done. At least from where I'm standing, it seems like this is something that he personally believes, and he wanted to inject this story with that messaging. It's not messaging that I agree with, but at the same time, I'm completely open to other opinions on this. If other people really feel that, hero narratives are extremely important, and we need to keep repeating these master plots, and we need to keep repeating this hero's journey structure until the end of time, and this is just what we are as humans, I'm open to talking about that. I'm open to that point of view, but it's definitely not a point of view that I happen to share, and I think that's why those lines that I read earlier really stood out to me just on a personal level of that doesn't sound quite right. On top of that, it just felt so out of place in the movie and the tone that it had already established that I want to know whether or not I'm just crazy for thinking that we can just leave behind hero narratives in general and hero worship as a concept. But I think that's about it. Sorry for this one was very, very loose and all over the place, but it's just something I'm enthusiastic about, that I'm excited to talk about. So I just wanted to share it with you folks. That's all for now. Thanks for stopping by.